guys, I'm Lucid Lynn. Welcome to my channel. This is a true crime paranormal channel, so every Sunday I'll be letting out a new video of either a true crime case or a paranormal story. So if you're into all things spooky like I am, then go ahead and like this video and subscribe. Hit the bell so that you can get notifications when I upload new videos. I also have another channel that I just started, and it's more of like a lifestyle channel where I'm gonna do like cooking or like gardening, or I just let out a video last night that is me absolutely ruining my hair. So go ahead and like that and subscribe to that channel as well. It's called Lucid Lynn Lifestyle. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the story. Okay, so since this is the first video on this channel, I wasn't sure if I should go like the true crime route or the paranormal route for this video, so I decided to go with a story that had a little bit of both in it. So I'm going to be talking about the Amityville Horror House. Okay, so our story today starts out in Long Island, New York, and the address is 112 Ocean Avenue. Now, the Amityville house was just gorgeous despite all the horrible things that happened there. It was a 6-bedroom house. It had a heated pool, a large boathouse on the Amityville River. I mean, it was huge, so pretty. Understandable why these people decided they should move in. So this story really starts out with the DeFeo family. Now, the DeFeo family had 7 people. They had the mother and the father, 2 daughters, and 3 sons. Now, their family life wasn't the best from the get-go. I mean, the father was rumored to be hostile, abusive, overbearing, and dominant to the children. And he was also a big drinker. So it really did cause some stress in the house, understandably. In their son, Ronald Jr., who his middle name was Butch, I believe. So in all of my research I was doing, they called him Butch. So I'm just going to go ahead and call him Butch for the rest of the video. So he ended up being labeled as a troubled adult due to his childhood and all the stress he had growing up. So Ronald Jr., Butch, he started drinking a lot when he was older. And he ended up going to the bar instead of going to work. He started becoming violent towards his family. There was even an occasion where he pulled a gun on his father. Things for the DeFeo family took a turn for the worse on November 13th, 1974 at 3:15 a.m. Butch had shot and killed all of his family members while they were sleeping in their beds. Now, the killings only took place over a span of 15 minutes, but the bodies showed no sign of struggle. That was the weird part. They were all found face down, laying in their beds, but it was as if nobody had heard any commotion. They never woke up to the sound of gunshots, and there were altogether 6 people that were murdered, and it's just a little strange that nobody woke up when they heard the first gunshot. It was also proven that there was no silencer for the gun. There was no way that it would have been quiet. And I just think it's really strange that they were all in the same exact position, laying face down in their bed. It kind of seemed as if they had been poisoned. Like, that's what the people, like the police started thinking. They started thinking maybe they were poisoned, maybe they were drugged, and that's why they were laying face down before they were shot. But in all of the autopsies, they all came back that none of them had any drugs or anything of that sort in their system. So that was one thing that was very strange about the way that these murders occurred. Now, the neighbors that were around the house, you would assume that they also would have heard gunshots. I mean, it was 3 a.m., so maybe they were sleeping, but they had reported that they heard no gunshots. They did say that they heard their dog barking, like the DeFeo's dog barking, but other than that, they didn't hear any commotion, any gunshots at all. So after brutally murdering his entire family, Butch casually took a shower and got dressed for work. And he eventually did end up reporting the murders, and he had said that he had come home and discovered his family dead after his day of work. He even went as far as to say initially that it was a mafia hitman and 2 accomplices that had put a gun to his head, to Butch's head, and forced him to kill his entire family. Now, to the police, this didn't make any sense. Like, just none of it made any sense. So they kept pushing, and eventually he did admit that it was him that killed his family. There was no mafia hitman. There were no accomplices. He did it himself. However, he claims that he was possessed while the murders took place, and he does not remember any of the events that occurred. He even, after admitting to the murders, he had went and he showed the police his bloody clothes and the gun, the murder weapon that he had hidden. In Butch's confession, he had stated, quote, "Once I started, I just couldn't stop. It went so fast," end quote. Though Ronald claimed that he doesn't remember murdering his family, that he was possessed, this didn't work for him in court, and Ronald Jr. DeFeo was sentenced to 6 life terms in the Sullivan Correctional Facility in New York. He is still currently serving his 6 life terms. Only 1 year after the murders, George and Kathy Lutz bought the house for only $80,000. And they knew about the murders. They were told, but they said that this wasn't going to change them buying the house. They just felt like they needed to buy it. Like, they felt a attraction to the house. Like, it was a beautiful house, so that's understandable. But things did not go very well in this house for them. So George was a businessman, and he took his work very seriously, but reportedly, after moving into the Amityville house on 112 Ocean Avenue, he changed. It was reported that his personality changed altogether. He was cranky. He didn't care as much about his work. It was just very odd. It was right after he moved in. So after moving into the house, this is super creepy. George woke up every single night at 3:15 a.m. and he couldn't go back to sleep. Now, remember from the beginning that 3:15 a.m. is when the murders took place in the DeFeo family. Not long at all after moving in did they discover that this house was haunted. Some crazy, creepy things happened to them while they lived here. For example, they had a 5-year-old daughter named Missy, and the father, George, reports standing outside and seeing her standing in her bedroom window, and behind her was a pig face with red eyes. He went up to her room to check on her, obviously, and he said that he found her fast asleep in her bed. Now, what's even creepier about this is that Missy had reported the next day that she had a new friend, and he was a pig named Jody. Another weird thing that started happening was George would wake up in the middle of the night and look at his wife only to discover that her face looked like it had aged like years. I mean, she looked like a 90-year-old woman. And it seemed like she was aging unnaturally fast, and she started acting like a totally different person. Even her mother reports seeing her in this manner. And things just got worse from there. Like, the hauntings did not stop. They were terrorized in this house in the short amount of time that they lived in it. For example, doors would literally get ripped off of hinges. There was a room full of flies, just a room covered in flies in the middle of winter, so that doesn't make any sense. Okay, this part freaks me out. It gives me chills. They discovered a secret room in their basement, and this room was not reported or drawn on any of the original blueprints for the house. When they went into this room, it was painted bloody red, and it was very small. Like, they had said that you could sit like 2 people in this room and you'd have to be like on top of each other. It was a very small room. And they also reported having a weird odor coming from this little room they found. So they took their dog into this little room, right? I don't know why, but they did. And George said, quote, "He just wouldn't go in. He backed away. It's the only time I can recall him ever cowering from something." Now, that creeps me out because I have dogs. I have a pug and another big dog, and I, trust their instincts. If they are freaked out about something, I totally trust them. So that is so creepy that the dog wouldn't go. So obviously they are sick of all of this going on in their house. They don't feel safe. They don't feel comfortable. They are scared. And so they hired a priest. And when the priest got there, he reported also experiencing strange phenomena, and he got physically ill when he entered the house. So on January 14th, 1976, only 28 days after George and Kathy Lutz had bought the Amityville house, they moved out. And I don't mean like moved out, like they left all of their belongings in the house and they ran. They said that they didn't know this was the last time they were going to leave the house. They were just so terrified that they just ran and literally left all of their belongings. So I don't know if you've ever heard of Ed and Lorraine Warren. If that sounds familiar, you probably heard it from the popular horror movie, The Conjuring. Now, Ed and Lorraine Warren were real people. And The Conjuring 2, the second film, was actually based around the Amity house. And Ed and Lorraine Warren really did, in real life, visit this house in the 1970s. And they did an investigation. And I didn't see much of what exactly happened with them, but they claimed that it was one of their most terrifying investigations ever. And they investigated so many different places. In an interview I watched with Ed and Lorraine Warren, Ed had said that when he was going to investigate the house, he asked George to meet him at the house to get the keys. And he didn't show up. And he gave him a call, and George Lutz had said, "I'm not going anywhere near that house. I never will again." And Ed said that it kind of seemed like he was too scared to even talk about the reason that he wouldn't go anywhere near this house. So he met him at a coffee shop it was an ice cream shop, I think. He met him there and got the keys from him, and George refused to go anywhere near the house for the investigation. So since the Lutz family had moved out of the Amityville house, it obviously still stands today. And there have been at least 4 families that have lived in this house, and none of them have reported to have anything paranormal or any hauntings or anything like that happened to them while living in the house. So that raises a lot of questions for skeptics, as if this was real or if it was a publicity stunt. And one reason people think that is because just a couple years after moving out of the house, George and Kathy had actually helped give insight into their story to have a book made about their experiences at the house. And that book is called The Amityville Horror, A True Story by Jay Anson. The first movie was called The Amity Horror, and that came out in 1979. There was another one called Amityville 2, The Possession, that came out in 1982. And the Amityville Horror that came out in 2005. So if you're wanting to hear more about that story, you can always go watch those movies or read that book. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you liked it. If there's any cases or creepy stories you want me to read in my next video, go ahead and leave me comments. And make sure you like and subscribe. And I hope to see you next time. Thanks, guys.